Unstuck. Our next guest is an author, life coach, and self-development specialist who has worked with companies and clients across the world.
So here to talk about all things wellness and motivational is Mark Fennell. Good morning to you, Mark.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us. Now, listen, this isn't new. You've been working in this industry for 20 plus years. Yes. As a life coach, what's a life coach?
It's a great question because it's a word that gets banded around. Basically, the way, look, when I started, I was a volunteer youth worker. That was 20 odd years ago. And then I got into business coaching and so forth. Life coaching basically helps someone with their personal and their professional development. So from the person behind the career and then the person, obviously, that becomes the professional. So it could be a CEO, it could be a manager, or it could be someone starting off their own business.
I've seen people go to kind of life coaches to kind of sort out what it is that they want, and it's been amazing for them. But in the 20 years you've been in this business, the industry has completely and utterly changed because it's become the wellness industry.
Yes.
Have you seen that yourself? And have you been like, hold on a second now, what's going on here?
Yeah, well, look, it's like every industry. You're going to have, I suppose, the snake oil and buzzwords and so forth, and people selling stuff that maybe doesn't always work. Wellness wasn't a word 15 years ago, even 10. But it does incredible amount of good at the same time, because I think, 15 years ago, mental health wasn't a conversation. If someone had anxiety, they just struggle with their nerves. It wasn't really a conversation, but now at least we have that awareness. The sad side of it is people have probably piggybacked off the back of that now and tried to use terminology and so forth and kind of pop psychology. And it can be kind of toxic at times if it's not looked at, because I suppose if you're looking to get a coach, get a professional coach. Don't go to, should we say, online and start Googling and become your own doctor. We wouldn't do it medically. So therefore, sometimes it's not good to do it when it comes to mental health or performance.
So if we're talking about coaching, because you think about going to the gym, you get a coach and he teaches you what to do. 100%. Like mentally, like an awful lot of decisions, everything goes on in our brain, and it's something we don't train enough. Yeah. So you're talking about people who are on social media and putting out the clickbait, whatever else. Happens. But for somebody who has the experience that you have, like how important is it to have somebody in a world where anxiety is rising, mental struggles are really rising? Like, is it something that you would encourage not just CEOs, our managers?
Everybody.
Everybody should be looking into this.
100%. I tell you why, because I learned the hard way my own self. I went through over 15 years ago now, but I was a business coach at the time, starting in business, young guy. And everything was going fine. And then all of a sudden, I had what they call burnout. And they declared it a nervous breakdown. Now, I was never struggled with anxiety. So I became a shell of a man. And I didn't understand what was going on. I had no understanding or rationale. And that's what made me, it was the worst thing that happened to me, but also the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I really understood the psychology of us, all of us humans. I was a high performer at the time even. It can happen to anybody if you don't look after yourself. I think everybody should have a coach. I know I'm sound biased when I say that, but I've seen what happens when you don't have one. It can get very dark very quick and you don't know where to turn. And you're afraid to ask for help because you feel you might be judged.
It's interesting because, as you mentioned, we're talking about mental health in a way that we never have before over the past, like certainly on the, we talk about it all the time. I talk about it with my friends, but yet anxiety levels are rising like they never have before. We're seeing people, so we're talking about it so much, but anxiety levels are rising. Do you, as someone who's been in the industry for 20 years, do you have something, do you attribute it to social media? Yeah. Do you attribute it to world factors, 24-hour rolling news? What do you think it is?
Well, you know what? It's the always on, always connected, and everything's faster. So, for example, we have very much, we have a nervous system, and it operates in different modes. There's the parasympathetic, which is resting mode, and then, the sympathetic, which is active. So the thing is, we're always on, always switched on. The phone is with us till the last thing at night.
There you go.
It's first thing in the morning. We're getting so many sound bites all the time. So we're dealing with a lot of information all the time, constantly. And then you're trying to maybe raise kids or run a business or, go to work. So we're stimulated far too much. And even when it comes to, I see it with teenagers, the gaming, which is like fantastic. I'm not against the gaming, but in the right confines, that's such an overstimulation. We're seeing the rise of stress and anxiety when teenagers, and then we ask how much hours you put into gaming. And it's like, I played it 6 hours today. And that's a systematic on all the time.
So what do you advise people?
Yeah, well, like the book it's called Breakthrough, because
Mark has a brand new book. It's called Breakthrough.
But I tell you why, because I share real stories of people who have gone, when you're going through life and then something comes along and knocks you for 6 and it's kind of like a bomb went off. And you thought you had it figured out. Maybe it's a divorce, maybe it's a job loss, maybe it's a diagnosis. And so the book is filled with stories of people who've gone through that, but more importantly, how they broke through and didn't get stuck there. And my own story in there, when we were trying for kids, and then one day the doctor says, after years of trying, and they said, you're not going to have kids naturally. That's just it. and a road you think you're on, you suddenly realize it's closed.
I was looking at this and I find it fascinating. If I could just read this bit about that. So, when are you guys going to have kids? That question that's asked. I found this question incredibly challenging to handle. It seemed to carry with it not only curiosity, but also expectations and judgments, even if nobody asked the question directly. Normally, we associate that question being asked to women all the time. And certainly, you know, we chat to people on this couch about that. But from a man's perspective, we never get to hear, what was that like for you?
Well, you know, because we just presumed, you know, you get married and there's a normal kind of approach to things, and then all of a sudden, we couldn't have kids, we don't have kids. And we had to come to terms with that. But you at the same time had people meaning well, they don't mean bad by it, but they don't understand the weight. Because it's like, if I don't have kids yet, am I dropping the ball? You know, am I letting the side down? And then when we're going through all these tests, the fear was, what if it's my fault my wife can't have kids? Which is kind of heartbreaking. And we never found out who was or why. They just said it's unexplained infertility. And we had to come to terms with that. But then people would ask the question, and again, they don't mean bad. What I realized was everyone, they don't mean to be malice, but they have an expectancy that life goes at a certain pace. And you should be this age, you should be settled down, you should be this and so forth. And the book kind of says, listen, forget what everyone's, I suppose, ideal plan is. You go by your plan. And maybe you may never meet someone, or maybe you might never have kids. But the main point I try and say in the book is, but you can still find a fulfilled life, even when what you wanted doesn't happen, or what you had goes away. Like a marriage collapses. A woman in there, she found out her husband was having an affair, and she deemed her life being happy. And she said, how will I ever be? Because she said, when I worked with her, she said, and she was a CEO, like a very successful woman, but she said, I was in this position of, I'll always be stamped with a marriage failed single mom. And she said, I feel like such a failure. And I said, you've done nothing wrong. You know, so sometimes we have to shake off our past, shake off those stigmas, say, you know what, it's you do you, is what I kind of tell people.
What about for people who haven't had life-changing moments, divorce or children, whatever else, people who are just going day to day in their jobs, but every time they go onto social media, they see their friends, they see everybody posting with this wonderful life, and it gets you down.
100%.
Like, is it important, do you have stuff in there for people like that to try fulfillment or contentment and being happy with where you are instead of always seeing what everybody else is doing?
Yeah, it's a great question and a really good point, Tommy, to be honest, because the book is written for the person who maybe hasn't gone through a climactic issue or a big thing and just feels, it opens with the book and it starts, how are you? And there's a woman I spoke with, Chloe, I changed her name now, but she said, I have everything and everyone's telling me I should be, you know, gratitude and grateful. She said, I just feel that something's missing. So I said, how are you? And she broke down in tears. And like she said, I'm just not happy. And she's like, I have 2 blessed kids, I've married, I'm just not. Sometimes, for no major reason, we just lose our spark and we need to get it back. So the book goes through step by step, literally what I've seen from 20 years of how to help someone get unstuck and get their spark back and be happy, irrespective of circumstance or history.
Because I suppose the way that our mental health services are in Ireland and the waiting lists are huge, I suppose we have to work on ourselves and actually pay attention.
You do.
If there's something wrong. If you're not feeling right, you have to kind of name it, would you think?
Absolutely. And as I say, you've got to sometimes say, how am I actually feeling? And you know, a lot of men don't do that.
Yeah.
We maintain or coast through life, not actually confronting and processing what's going on. And it's only then can we actually heal from it and move forward. Sometimes you have to say, look, how are you doing really? We've an awful habit in Ireland going, how's it going? But not really listening. Sometimes we need to listen, and to ourselves mainly.
Yeah.
What I did with the book is, if you didn't have a life coach, the book is like having your own little coach to help you get through step by step to where you want to get to.
You mentioned earlier on about this whole wellness industry as well, and I think it was on Tommy Tiernan at the weekend, Dermot Whelan on as well, and he was talking about he left the radio to pursue mindfulness, something that he's really involved in as well. And Tommy kind of said, oh, are you just cashing in on this whole wellness thing? Like, is it important, if you're saying everybody should have a coach or you should look into this, how do you find a good coach?
I say that with a warning, because a lot of people claim to be coaches and may not have
because Dermot, like, is amazing what he does. He has his book and stuff as well. But there are some people out there who are kind of just jumping on the bandwagon.
There is, and I think there's a lot of, you know, possibly pop psychology and what's popular, what's trending, and that sounds good. And then what I would always say is, look at the person. I'd always say, well, how long are they doing it? Have they their own experience? Is it through word of mouth? What have you heard about the person? And before you even engage with their services, have a phone call. and say, listen, you know, and ask the questions and see, do you resonate? Because you could have a great coach and not resonate. So it's like finding, I suppose, a personal trainer, but it's even bigger than that. It's your mental health. So it's important. Don't just give that responsibility to anybody.
Yeah.
You know, make sure they've got experience.
You mentioned Chloe, you changed her name as
Yes.
CEO. Was that Sheryl Sandberg? I've been told I can't talk about your celebrity clients. I'm
No,
joking. I'm joking.
Says, are you okay? It was Holly.
Do not talk about Mark's celebrity clients. But Dr. McDreamy followed you the other day, did he? Patrick Dempsey.
The world's sexiest man has been following me for a while, yeah. But it's not because of my clothes.
And he was in Ireland as well, wasn't he?
Listen, we say no more, but you know what? Yeah, it's an exciting space as well, and I do love it. But it's rewarding. That's why I love it most, to be honest with you.
No, it is.
Why, you sidestepped telling me about Patrick Dempsey there. Fair play to you.
Listen, your new book, Breakthrough, in shops all over the place at the minute. And, of course, your social media as well. What's your social media handle?
So, yeah, it's markfennell.ie, and it's the same for the website, markfennell.ie.
Mark, listen, pleasure to have you with us.
Are you an overthinker? I've read that page about 75 million times. Thank you, Mark. Cheers.
Thank you.